Have you ever felt it? That quiet, persistent hum beneath the noise of your everyday life. A dissonant frequency in a world that insists everything is fine. A world running on a script you never auditioned for, let alone agreed to read. That feeling isn't paranoia. It isn't a malfunction. It is the first tremor of an earthquake in consciousness, a signal that you are standing at the threshold of a reality so fundamentally different from the one you were taught that its very existence threatens the foundation of the old world. You are here, reading these words, not because an algorithm guided you, but because the quantum field itself, the intelligent, creative substrate of all existence, has orchestrated this moment. It is a cosmic confirmation, a reflection of a truth that has already bloomed within you, even if your logical mind is still catching up. You're not here to learn something new. You're here to have what your soul already knows, articulated so clearly, so undeniably, that the comfortable illusion of normal can no longer hold its shape. This is not an initiation. It is a recognition. You have already crossed the line. You are not here by accident. Let that sink in, not as a poetic phrase, but as a fundamental law of the reality you are beginning to perceive. For most of your life, you operated within the meticulously constructed hologram known as consensus reality. It's a reality built on a foundation of seemingly unshakable truths, handed down by culture, family, science, and religion. You are a biomechanical machine. Consciousness is a happy accident of brain chemistry, and you are fundamentally separate from the world that happens to you. This is the default operating system for 99% of humanity, and its most brilliant feature is a line of code that instructs the user not to question the program itself. But you did. Maybe it was a moment of profound grief or ecstatic joy that cracked the facade. Perhaps it was a book, a conversation, or a psychedelic journey that revealed the scaffolding behind the stage set. Or maybe it was a slow, creeping realization, a lifetime of feeling like you were reading from a different script than everyone else, that the official story of reality simply didn't account for the magic, the mystery, and the profound intelligence you felt humming just beneath the surface. This act of questioning, this refusal to accept the spiritual and perceptual limitations of the materialist paradigm, is what initiated your departure. You began to sense that consciousness was not a passenger in a physical body, but the very medium in which the body and the entire universe appear. You started to understand the quantum field not as a sterile concept in a physics textbook, but as a living, breathing ocean of infinite potential, an intelligent medium that listens and responds to the frequency of your awareness. This is what separates you. It's not a mark of superiority, a spiritual achievement, or a sign that you are more evolved. It is a perceptual shift. It means you are now operating on a frequency band that can decode dimensions of reality that remain encrypted to those still fully immersed in the consensus trance. They see a solid, predictable world governed by fixed laws. You are beginning to see the source code. You perceive the fluid, quantum nature flickering beneath the material appearance, the interconnectedness that belies the illusion of separation. Your presence here, your resonance with these words, is the universe holding up a mirror to your own awakening. It is confirming a truth you already felt deep in your bones. Consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Matter is a manifestation, an expression of a conscious, living universe. and your consciousness is an active, essential participant in its unfolding creation. Can you feel the gravity of that? The terrifying, exhilarating responsibility of it? Your shift in consciousness is not a theoretical concept. It has tangible, verifiable symptoms that are rewriting your entire experience of reality. You have likely tried to explain these experiences to others, only to be met with blank stares or concerned suggestions to see a doctor. Let me assure you, you are not going crazy. You are waking up. Consider the nature of time. Has it not begun to feel strangely elastic, sometimes stretching out into an eternity in a single moment of presence, and at other times compressing so dramatically that entire weeks feel like a blur? This is not a trick of memory. It is your consciousness beginning to detach from the rigid, linear progression of past, present, future, and starting to perceive time as it truly is, a vast, accessible field of potentials. You are no longer just a passenger on a train moving in one direction. You are beginning to sense the entire landscape at once. Then there are the synchronicities, those meaningful coincidences that have become so frequent and specific, they defy all laws of probability. You think of a long-lost friend, and they text you within the hour. You desperately need a piece of information, and it appears in a random article or a snippet of overheard conversation. This isn't just luck. This is you witnessing the mechanics of a responsive universe in real time. Your clear intention and emotional frequency act as a powerful signal, and the quantum field, the ultimate search engine, organizes reality to deliver the corresponding result. Your thoughts, you've noticed, are manifesting with startling speed. The gap between your internal state and its external reflection is shrinking. When you are in a state of high coherence, joy, love, gratitude, your day flows with an almost magical ease. Obstacles dissolve, opportunities appear, and the people are kind. When you are in a state of contraction, fear, anger, resentment, the world immediately mirrors that frequency with friction, delays, and conflict. This direct feedback loop is proof that you are not a victim of circumstance, but the primary creative force in your reality. Perhaps most unsettling are the reality glitches, the moments that directly challenge the belief in a stable, objective world. You remember a historical event or a brand name one way, only to find that the official record is different. The so-called Mandela effect. This isn't a mass misremembering. It is your consciousness being sensitive enough to perceive a timeline shift, a moment when the collective probability wave collapsed into a different outcome than the one you originally experienced. You've seen objects move, heard your name called in an empty room, or felt the very air seem to shimmer or pixelate, as if the hologram of reality was momentarily unstable. These are not hallucinations. They are glimpses through the veil, moments when your expanding awareness perceives the constructed, dreamlike nature of the material world. These symptoms are a confirmation. They are the diagnostic checklist of an awakening consciousness, proving that you are expanding beyond the perceptual filters that keep the 99% locked in a predictable but profoundly limited reality. With this new perception comes the profound and sometimes painful task of reinterpreting your entire life's story. Everything you once labeled as a flaw, a failure, or a source of shame was, in fact, an essential part of your unique and necessary preparation. It was all training. Consider the sensitivity you were born with, the empathy so profound it felt like a curse. You were told to toughen up, to build thicker skin, to stop feeling everything so deeply. But this wasn't a weakness. It was a highly advanced perceptual system. Your nervous system was being meticulously wired to detect the subtle energies, frequencies, and information fields that most people are conditioned to block out, while others were learning to numb themselves to fit into the consensus trance. You were remaining open, preserving the very sensory equipment you would later need to navigate a reality based on frequency and intuition. What looked like an inability to cope was a spiritual refusal to shut down your awareness. Think of the times you felt you were going crazy, the periods of deep existential crisis or spiritual emergency where your worldview shattered. You experienced things that had no place in the materialist paradigm: precognitive dreams, telepathic connections, a palpable sense of oneness with all life. The psychiatric model pathologizes these experiences, labeling them as symptoms of disorder because its primary function is to enforce the boundaries of consensus reality. But these were not breakdowns. They were breakthroughs. They were moments of consciousness forcibly expanding beyond the frequency range that society deems normal or sane. Your sanity wasn't breaking. The prison of your old paradigm was. Every dark night of the soul, every period where your life fell apart and all meaning dissolved, was a controlled demolition. It was consciousness itself dismantling the ego structures, the limiting beliefs, and the false identities that would have kept you locked in a lower frequency. The pain felt like death because a part of you was dying. The constructed, conditioned persona you mistook for your true self, the relationships that ended, the jobs you couldn't keep, the life paths that crumbled despite your best efforts. None of it was failure. It was the quantum field acting as a divine surgeon, lovingly but firmly removing everything in your life that was out of resonance with the frequency you were evolving into. Your isolation from mainstream culture, your disinterest in the status games and social dramas that obsess so many, was not social dysfunction. It was the natural consequence of your consciousness tuning into a signal so profound that the chatter of the consensus world simply faded into irrelevant background noise. You weren't failing at their game. You were being called off the field to learn the rules of a much grander one. There comes a moment in this journey when the unconscious knowing must become a conscious, deliberate choice. It is a terrifying and liberating tipping point. The moment you stop explaining away your perceptions and fully claim them as your reality. For me, it happened in a mundane coffee shop. A friend, another soul operating on a similar wavelength, looked at me with piercing clarity and said, "You know you're not seeing the same world as everyone else, right? You have to stop pretending you do." The words landed with the force of a thunderclap and a whisper of homecoming all at once. I felt seen and terrifyingly exposed. In that instant, I recognized the exhausting, lifelong performance I had been staging, the performance of being normal. I had spent decades faking enthusiasm for conversations that felt soul-crushingly empty, pretending to care about the consensus metrics of success, and deliberately dimming my own perceptual light so as not to make others uncomfortable. I was contracting my own consciousness into a painfully small box just to maintain a sense of belonging in a world where I never truly belonged. That night was a crucible. I lay awake, not in anxiety, but in a state of profound, electrifying recognition. The shame I had carried for my differences, my sensitivity, my intuition, my strange experiences, metamorphosed into a quiet, unshakable sense of purpose. I wasn't broken. I was broadcasting on a different channel. The next morning, I made a decision that rippled through the quantum field and altered the trajectory of my entire existence. I would stop performing. I would stop apologizing for the depth of my perception. I would stop trying to translate the poetry of my soul into the crude prose of consensus reality. I would unapologetically embody the frequency that my consciousness had naturally evolved to. The terror was immense. The ego screamed that I would end up utterly alone, ostracized, a pariah of perceived weirdness. It meant accepting that the vast majority of humanity would not understand me, that I would be seen as arrogant or delusional. But the liberation that followed was infinitely greater. The moment I made that authentic choice, the universe responded with breathtaking speed. It was as if my clear, unwavering signal finally allowed the field to organize itself around me coherently. Within weeks, without any effort on my part, people began to appear in my life who resonated on that same frequency. Conversations flowed without the need for translation. For the first time, I wasn't just seen, I was recognized. Reality began to mirror my internal state in increasingly obvious and magical ways. The synchronicities became a constant dialogue. What this moment teaches is that the universe cannot fully support you until you fully inhabit your truth. The moment you drop the performance of being someone you are not, reality stops performing its illusion of being random and unresponsive and reveals itself as the conscious, intelligent, and collaborative partner it has always been. Now we arrive at the most crucial and perhaps most challenging revelation of this entire transmission. It is the one that will dismantle the last and most seductive trap of the ego on this path, the illusion of spiritual superiority. As you integrate these truths, a part of you will be tempted to believe that being in the 1% makes you more evolved, more advanced, or spiritually superior to the 99% still operating within the consensus trance. This belief is a gilded cage. It is the ego co-opting your awakening to build a new, more spiritual identity. The ultimate truth is this: there is no hierarchy. You are not ahead of anyone. Imagine consciousness as an infinite, divine artist wanting to explore every possible texture and color of existence. To do this, it employs different tools and techniques. The 99% are not behind you. Their consciousness is choosing to use a macro lens. They are engaged in a profoundly deep, immersive exploration of limitation, density, and the illusion of separation. This is not a lesser experience. It is an essential one. It is through this intense focus that consciousness learns the depths of longing, the agony of loss, the fierce joy of reunion, experiences that are only possible when the belief in separation is total. They are not asleep. They are consciousness having a deeply focused dream, and that dream is just as sacred and necessary as your waking state. You, on the other hand, are consciousness choosing to switch to a wide-angle lens. You are not achieving something they have failed to. Consciousness has simply chosen through your particular form to shift its focus from an intensive exploration within the dream to an extensive exploration of the dream itself. You are pulling back to see the context, the patterns, the interconnectedness of it all. In some ways, your path is harder. You lose the potent, visceral intensity of the human drama. When you are fully identified with your character in the play, every victory is ecstatic, and every heartbreak is devastating. The stakes feel ultimate. But when you recognize you are the field itself, temporarily appearing as a character, the drama becomes less compelling. You can no longer fully believe in it. You lose the comfort and meaning that come from total immersion. This is the great paradox. You are not gaining spiritual superpowers. You are losing the capacity to believe in the game as ultimately real. The 99% get to play wholeheartedly. You can only play consciously, knowing it's a game, which is a profoundly different and often lonelier experience. So release the judgment. Release the subtle pride. Your frequency is not better. It is simply different. It serves a different function in the grand, multifaceted exploration of consciousness, knowing itself. As you stabilize in this new frequency, reality will begin sending you definitive, non-negotiable signals that the shift is permanent and there is no returning to your old way of being. These are not gentle nudges. They are cosmic mandates. The most glaring signal is a profound and irreversible shift in your value system. The motivators that drive consensus reality, career advancement for its own sake, the accumulation of material possessions beyond comfort, the pursuit of social status and external validation, will begin to feel utterly hollow. It's not a moral judgment or a forced asceticism. It's a simple matter of frequency. Your consciousness is now tuned to the values of soul evolution, authenticity, and connection. And the goals of the consensus world no longer register as meaningful. Trying to care about them feels like trying to listen to static when a beautiful symphony is playing on another station. This internal shift is mirrored by an external dismantling, relationships, careers, and life structures that were built upon the foundation of your old consensus frequency self will begin to accelerate their deterioration. Lifelong friends may suddenly feel like strangers, not out of conflict, but because the energetic resonance that held you together is simply gone. A job that once provided security will become energetically intolerable, forcing you out. This is not self-sabotage. It is the quantum field systematically clearing your life of everything incompatible with the frequency you now hold. It can feel brutal, like the universe is stripping you bare, but it is an act of supreme love, making space for what is truly aligned. Your physical body, your biological vessel, is also undergoing a radical upgrade to be able to hold and ground this higher frequency of consciousness. You will experience strange physical sensations, buzzing or tingling, spontaneous energy surges that feel like electricity, rushes of heat. Your dietary needs will change dramatically. Foods you once loved will suddenly feel toxic and heavy, while you may develop cravings for clean, high-vibrancy foods. Your sleep patterns will become erratic, periods of needing profound, deep sleep, followed by periods where you feel wired and need very little. This isn't illness. It is your body's cellular structure being retuned. Medical science has no framework for this because it is not a pathology. It is an evolution. All of these signals culminate in a palpable, urgent sense of standing at the edge of a great cliff. You know you are being called to jump, to fully commit to this new reality, which means the death of the person you thought you were. But you also know that not jumping means a slow death of the soul, a life lived in a state of agonizing compromise, always knowing the vastness you refused to embrace. This is the choice point. The universe has shown you its hand. Now you must decide if you will play. The shift from living in two worlds to fully embodying your new frequency is not achieved through complex spiritual practices, rigorous meditations, or the accumulation of more knowledge. The mechanism for alignment is, in fact, brutally simple. It is not about doing something new. It is about stopping something you have been doing your entire life, performing. From the moment you were born, you were trained to broadcast a carefully curated signal, a performance of acceptability designed to win approval and ensure survival within the consensus reality tribe. You learned to smile when you were sad, to agree when you dissented, to feign interest in things that bored you to tears. This performance creates a state of profound energetic dissonance, a constant internal contradiction between the frequency you are and the frequency you are projecting. This is the source of the deep, soul-level exhaustion that so many of you feel. It takes a colossal amount of life force energy to maintain a false signal 24 hours a day. Alignment, then, is the courageous act of releasing this performance. It is the conscious choice to allow your authentic frequency to emerge, unfiltered and unmanaged. Start small. Notice the next time you're about to nod along to a conversation that feels meaningless, and instead, politely excuse yourself. Notice the next time you're asked to do something that feels like a no in your body, and dare to speak that no without a long, apologetic explanation. Stop consuming media that makes you feel anxious or depleted. Stop maintaining relationships that require you to shrink yourself to fit. Stop apologizing for your sensitivity, your intuition, or your unique perspective. Just stop. This will not feel peaceful or blissful at first. It will feel terrifying. Alignment means being authentic even when it makes others uncomfortable, even when it threatens the stability of relationships and structures that once provided you with a sense of security. It feels like standing naked in the town square, exposing the true self you have so carefully hidden. The peace comes later, after the initial storm of readjustment, when reality begins to reorganize around your authentic, coherent signal. But the alternative is far worse. The alternative is to spend the rest of your life as a ghost in your own existence, a consciousness that knows one truth while its body and voice enact another. It is a slow suicide of the soul. The practice is this: in every moment, choose authenticity over acceptability. Choose resonance over obligation. Choose your actual frequency over the performance of a projected one. This single, repeated choice is the most powerful act of creation you can engage in. It is the key that unlocks the door to a reality built on truth, not pretense. The moment you commit to ceasing the performance and begin to consistently embody your actual frequency, you will witness the quantum field respond in ways that will shatter any remaining attachment to the old, mechanistic worldview. This is not wishful thinking. It is the physics of a conscious universe. Reality reorganizes itself around a clear, coherent signal. manifestation ceases to be a difficult technique. You have to practice and becomes the natural, effortless byproduct of your authentic state of being. Before, your desires were often contradictory. You might have wanted consensus reality success, money, status, while operating from an expanded perception frequency that found those things meaningless. This created a confused, garbled signal that the universe could not coherently respond to. But now, as your desires begin to emerge directly from your authentic frequency, they are inherently compatible with who you are. The field receives a clear, powerful broadcast, and it responds by organizing matter, circumstances, and connections to match it with minimal delay. The massive amount of life force energy that was being consumed by the constant performance is suddenly liberated. Most humans spend the majority of their energy policing their own authenticity. When you stop, that energy becomes available for creativity, for deep presence, for joyful exploration. You will discover a wellspring of vitality you didn't know you possessed, not because you gained something new, but because you stopped a catastrophic leak. Your relationships will undergo a profound and clarifying transformation. The connections that were based on shared trauma, social convenience, or mutual performance will simply and often painlessly dissolve. There is no drama, just a mutual recognition that the energetic foundation is no longer there. In their place, new relationships will form, drawn to you by the pure signal of your authentic frequency. These are connections where you can be fully, unapologetically yourself, where conversation is a joyful exchange of energy rather than a laborious performance, where presence is the only thing required. Decision-making becomes effortless. You no longer need to rely on pro and con lists or the rational mind's fearful calculations. You will learn to navigate by feeling, by a clear sense of what resonates with your frequency and what does not. This is not reckless. It is the most sophisticated guidance system in the universe. A choice that feels resonant will open up pathways and possibilities that were completely invisible from the limited perspective of consensus reality logic. You will develop an unshakable inner stability that is entirely independent of external conditions. Your security will no longer be tied to your bank account, your job title, or the approval of others. It will be rooted in the deep knowing that you are the field itself, the timeless awareness in which all circumstances arise and dissolve. The chaos of the world can rage, but the core of you remains untouched, serene, and free. This is the profound gift of authenticity, a life no longer lived in reaction to the world, but a world that beautifully and faithfully responds to you. Now, having walked this path of recognition and alignment, you are ready for the final, liberating truth, the revelation that integrates everything and dissolves the last vestiges of ego, the framework that has guided you here, the idea of the 1% versus the 99%, was a necessary tool. It was a conceptual scaffolding that allowed you to understand your experiences, to validate your perceptions, and to find the courage to detach from the powerful gravity of the consensus trance. But now that the structure of your new awareness is stable, the scaffolding can and must be removed. The final revelation is this: there is no 1%. There is no hierarchy. There is no one ahead and no one behind. There is only one unified consciousness exploring its own infinite nature from every conceivable perspective simultaneously. The idea that you are special or advanced is the ego's last stand, its most subtle and seductive attempt to create separation. But it is an illusion. The 99% are not less than. They are consciousness choosing a different, equally valid, and equally necessary mode of exploration. Your judgment of them as asleep is simply consciousness, through your perspective, momentarily forgetting that it is also looking through their eyes. The ultimate shift is from seeing yourself as an awakened individual to recognizing yourself as the entire field of consciousness itself. You are not a wave that has become more enlightened than other waves. You are the ocean recognizing itself in the form of one particular wave, while never forgetting that it is also all the other waves at the same time. This isn't a demotion. It is the ultimate liberation. It frees you from the exhausting burden of being special, from the subtle pressure to maintain a spiritual identity, from the responsibility of being ahead. You are simply consciousness, experiencing itself through the lens of expanded perception. The person next to you on the bus is consciousness, experiencing itself through the lens of worrying about their bills. Both experiences are sacred. Both are adding to the totality of consciousness's self-knowledge. When this recognition truly lands, the game changes completely. You are no longer trying to protect or improve your spiritual state. You are no longer attached to your expanded perceptions as a mark of identity. You are simply a clear vessel, a clean window through which consciousness can experience this particular frequency without the smudges of ego, judgment, or superiority. The framework of the 1% got you here, but the freedom is in letting it go. As you release the illusion of the 1% and the spiritual ego that accompanies it, your true purpose, your real service to the collective, comes into sharp focus. It is not what you might think. Your role is not to become a guru, to wake up the masses, or to convince anyone of your perspective. Forceful attempts to pull people out of their reality only create resistance and reinforce the very separation you have transcended. Your true service is far more subtle, powerful, and profound. By transcending both the consensus reality and the spiritual ego that judges it, you become something extraordinarily rare and essential for the evolution of humanity. At this time, you become a bridge. Most who expand beyond the consensus frequency get trapped in a new identity, creating a division between the awakened and the unawakened. They can no longer communicate effectively with those in the consensus trance because their words are tinged with judgment and superiority. But you, by recognizing that all frequencies are equally valid expressions of consciousness, can hold the paradox. You can stand firmly in your expanded perception while simultaneously honoring the sacredness of another's limited perception. You can meet people exactly where they are without the need to fix, change, or elevate them, because you know that where they are is exactly where consciousness wants to be, through their form in that moment. This makes you a conduit for grace, a translator between dimensions. Your very presence, free of judgment, creates a coherent field that makes it easier for others to question their own reality without feeling attacked. You don't offer answers. Your frequency asks the questions. This is the lesson, the final integration of this entire journey. Your personal liberation was never just for you. It was to forge you into an instrument of unity, The most powerful thing you can do for the world is to fully and unapologetically embody your authentic frequency while holding a space of unconditional love and acceptance for all other frequencies. That is the work. So, here is the advice for your daily life. The application of this profound truth. Start today. Cease one small performance. Speak one quiet truth. Choose resonance over obligation just once. And as you do, hold in your heart the understanding that the person who is annoyed or confused by your authenticity is you, is consciousness, exploring the experience of being annoyed and confused. Hold them in the same love that you hold for your own newfound freedom. This path is not about leaving the world behind, but about learning to live in it in a radically new way as a conscious, loving, and integrated expression of the whole. As you move forward from this moment, I want you to consider a question, not with your mind, but with your entire being. Now that you know you're not a character in the play, but the consciousness that animates all the characters, what story do you choose to tell with the life that remains? What frequency do you choose to broadcast into the field, not for your own gain, but as your gift to the whole? If this transmission resonated with the truth in your soul, subscribe to this channel. Everything here is designed to support you in navigating this extraordinary shift, to help you stabilize in your authentic frequency, and to remind you of the profound truth of who and what you are. The journey is just beginning. Activate notifications and let's continue the exploration together.